Welcome to One Leg Up, where we discuss how you can deliver the very best customer experience and how you can achieve zero marketing waste. I'm Ed Davis, Chief Operations Ninja here at One Leg, and today I'm joined by our digital experience partner, Joshua Braines-Mead. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. I've got my coffee. I'm all prepared. I'm in a completely different time zone from you, so it's morning here, it's afternoon here. But thanks for having the time to get me in. I'm excited to talk all things UX UI.
Well, time zone is a bit of a misnomer, right? You're in a completely different hemisphere. In all honesty, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Josh, he is located in on the sunny continent of Australia, not as some people might think, island of Australia. It is actually a continent. I can't remember what the defining characteristics are of a continent, but there we go. And today we brought Josh on. He's going to talk to us about user experience and user interface, which is and Josh and I were doing a little bit of the talking before we hit record on this podcast, because I've always struggled with, well, what exactly is the difference. He's going to walk us through that. He's going to walk us through how you can make your user experience and user interface better as a probably a small business owner, and we'll get into some of the key differences and key things you need to be aware of as you try to grow and build your business, um, here moving forward. So let's get the basics out of the way, Josh. Why is this topic important, and what are the basic definitions of user experience and user interface?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing to talk about is what UX is as a concept and what UXI is a concept. Um, so these are kind of technical terms that have started becoming quite common in in all businesses nowadays, whether it's a small startup or whether it's a large enterprise with a dedicated, experienced team. Uh, Back in the good old days of like the 90s and the 2000s, not every business had a website. And so the question then was just how can we get a website up? How can we just make a digital hub for people to come to? Now that we're in a more modern age where we've come a long way, every business has a website. Now it's a question of how does your business stand out online amongst the crowd? And the
Rather
answer
than
for
just
that,
show up. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so the answer for that usually comes down to user experience. Um, so to kind of give it a more formal definition, user interface is essentially what the user sees when they open up the website. So it could be just a one-page website, it could be a mobile application, anything on the surface level that you can see with your eyes and describe visually. User experience is pretty much everything else. Um, so user experience is this big banner that covers everything from user experience to user testing to user research to customer experience to marketing. Essentially, it's the feeling that people get when they interact with your brand. Um, so you might get an email from a company with a special promotion. That's user experience. You open up the website and you find the product really easily. That's user experience. You feel compelled to buy it because of the way it's been marketed to you. That's user experience. Um, and so there's been a big shift, I think, in the focuses of a lot of businesses nowadays, away from the aesthetics and the visual flair, and more into creating websites and products that really speak to what people are looking for. Um, and so in the past, it would be that you would have a team of designers who would just kind of try and make something that looks quite
Pretty.
flash or yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
pretty, um, and try and win some awards. But then real people would try and use that software or that site, and they wouldn't be able to find what they're looking for, or they would get really frustrated. Um, and that's because the user experience hasn't been designed for. So what people like myself do is we help businesses kind of analyze what it is that people are looking for by looking at stuff like Google Analytics, or in the best case, actually talking to those people and finding out their pain points, their frustrations, and their goals. And then we use that to craft new journeys and new experiences that essentially make it as easy as possible for people to do what they want to do, and enjoy that. Like the best websites are the ones that you go onto and you feel a sense of joy and you want to share it with your friends.
Sure.
Um, And then these all feed back into the UI. So UX and UI are very interrelated in the sense that if a website looks like crap, you're going to feel kind of dodgy about it. Um, but in the same
Yeah,
sense that if a website looks fantastic, but you can't find out how to get to a page or you can't find what you're looking for, it doesn't really matter what it looks like.
right.
So that's a kind of like a more technical
Y-
definition of what
So,
UX and UI is.
yeah, and while you've been walking through that, obviously we have up on the screen sort of the left brain, right brain, UX versus UI, but you provided an image that's even more simplistic than this one, and one that I actually get, which is this, right? So the actual Heinz tomato ketchup bottle, the original design, I dare say, which was glass and had the cap and sat upright. For those who may be just listening and not seeing the visuals, that is representative of UI. But in order to give somebody a better experience, what was it? I think maybe 12, 15 years ago, they flipped that upside down. They made it a squeeze bottle, because you would always bang on the bottom of the
Mm.
Heinz tomato ketchup jar. And just as a bit of a side story, I used to run a restaurant when I was in just out of high school, and somebody was banging on one of those jars and it burst open and cut his hand wide open and stuff like that, and it was really hard to tell what was the ketchup and what was the blood. So 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 that, to me, this visual and that description of the difference between UI and UX, if somebody who's listening to this doesn't get it after this, there's no help for you. um you just go ahead and put pause on the podcast. um it doesn't matter at this point. So, right. So I think the other things we want to talk about is, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. And like I sort of said at the top of the show, what is it? 60-70% of the world's of business within the world are independent contractors, consultants, and then small businesses, much like One Leg. They're not these monolithic companies who have entire web and IT teams and back end designers and programmers and all that kind of stuff. So, what are those small business owners? What are the things that you see they often overlook, whether it be on the UI side or the UX side, that aren't overly complicated or expensive to implement, that people should be thinking about?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest struggle that I often see small businesses and startups do is that they look at their competitors and they worry, okay, well, they're selling very similar products or services to what we're selling. Maybe it's at a more affordable rate. Maybe our customer experience team is better though. And so, in order to try and stand out, what they do is they try and sell their product or sell their service as much as possible. So, from the get go, it's walls of text explaining what makes their product better. It's constant kind of in your face promotions. It's very overwhelming. Um, and I think if you look at the big tech companies, you look at the Apples, you look at the Microsofts, um, they don't need to do that often because instead what they do is they do this technique called storytelling, which is essentially if you're trying to sell a new product, rather than writing 100 paragraphs of text that people probably aren't going to read, if you can write like a handful of copy that people read and it makes them feel a certain way,
Right.
it's going to be better than anything that they read in a big like spreadsheet. Um, and so I think a lot of these websites that I see try and overwhelm the person with buy this product, like this is why this product is superior, but they haven't actually told the story of the product. So they haven't actually spoken to the customer to say, this is why we stand out, this is why we're different, this is why you would want to consider us for a purchase. Um,
Do you find that people do that, in terms of, let's put everything we can think of, about this product or service on the actual web page, even if you've got to scroll for 5 minutes to get through it all? Do
mm,
you find that people are doing that because there's this mystery or lack of understanding around things like SERP and SEO and the Google algorithms and all of that? Or is it more fundamental than that, that people just don't understand how to actually market their products and services?
I think it's a combination of both. Um, I think everyone that's kind of worked with SEO in the past has that understanding of the more that time that someone spends on the website, the better it is for us.
Right.
Um, but what they kind of fail to recognize is that most people don't spend a lot of time on websites. If I am looking at a new product or a new service, I'll probably like speed browse the website for about 10-20 seconds. And if I'm not immediately hooked in or I can't find what I'm looking for, I just go somewhere else. Um, so as you said, there's no point in having a website where the user has to scroll for a few minutes to read all of the content on the homepage, because people don't do that. Um, by the time people come to your website and they're spending several minutes on it, they've probably already made up their minds whether or not they're going to buy your service. Um, so that
Sure.
first impression is really what the most important thing is. Um, and then what you were talking about how they can sometimes struggle to tie their marketing efforts into their customers. Um, a problem that I often see with a lot of these smaller businesses is that uh, they look at what the business is looking for and what the customer might want from a product, but they're struggling to kind of find that common ground. And what they kind of do is they have this strategy where the more information a customer knows, the better. And so we'll just put as much information on the site as possible. Uh, but sometimes less is more. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before, where if a user feels overwhelmed when they go on a website looking at a product or a service, uh, it really ruins that story for them, because you got to walk before you can run. So if you don't understand the story behind this product, you're never going to be inclined to buy it. Um, you look at how Apple sells a new iPhone, for example. The specifications on the iPhone, they could talk about that all day. The 25 zoom on the camera
Right.
or whatever. Um, but they purposefully hold that information back until the point where you have already kind of made up your mind whether or not you would buy that product. Instead, what they do at the start is they tell the story of, hey, look, this is the brand that you know of. Look how great it looks because we've got all this fantastic photography. Um, Without us saying any specs, don't you want an iPhone? Because you can see how people are using it. Um, so yeah, coming back to your point, I think it's just a question of making the content on the website meaningful to the
Yeah.
person that's reading it.
Well, I think that gets to, we have a whole other, we have a couple other podcasts that talk about customer experience and storytelling for that matter.
Mm,
And I think this is where small businesses go awry. And I think part of it is they don't understand it, and the other part of it is they don't invest the time or the effort or the energy to do this. And essentially, what Apple's doing, what a United might be doing, or a Qantas Airlines, or a BMW, or a Mercedes, and you hit on it there. What they are saying, what they are presenting to you is a story in the form of, typically, one way or the other. There's no way to get around it. Pictures, ideally moving pictures, and what they're saying is this brand will allow you to live like this, right?
mm,
Whether it's I drive on curvy roads and my family's safe and I look stylish and all that. And what they're hoping you do is go, yeah, that's how I want to be, right? They're telling you a story about how you can live, and they're painting a picture of what your life can look like if
mm,
you interact and you use their brand. And then to your point, once you've got that in your head, well, then the features, how many miles to the gallon it gets,
mm,
how many points you get by flying in first class or whatever, that all just forces the decision that you've made based on the story that they've told you. And I think that that's one of the things that people they do get wrong, right? Because they just immediately go, I have an idea for a restaurant, or I have an idea for a brewery, or a coffee shop or something like that. And I think it's just as simple as throwing up a name, a logo, and here's our menu, or whatever the case may be. And I think if every company, every organization, no matter how small, took a minute to go, okay, what am I actually really about?
mm,
And what is our story? What is our vision? Why am I different? Because this is, and you know, Josh works with us on a couple of our clients, and we won't name the client, but we do have a client who's sort of in this transition from a commoditized product that people typically think about, once a decade.
Mm,
And when they do think about it, they want to try and get the best price that they can. And we're trying to move them into sort of luxury brand space, which is a really hard transition. But you have to put in, but everybody can do that. Everybody can do the exercises that we're doing and craft the mission, the vision, the wording, the story, as you rightfully called it, to help your customers envision themselves in your brand story is
mhm,
really how I would characterize that. So I think that's a really interesting bit. And so let's go into our other favorite topic. And you sort of broached it with small companies. The other place that One Leg plays and that you've helped us out on is
mhm,
in the home improvement space. And we all have this running commentary on, ooh, it's funny, right? Because all of these companies, whether they're a plumber, a roofer, a solar company, a bath remodeling company, they're all fundamentally different in their own little ways, even though they sit under this home improvement umbrella. But I think the thing that we've all been baffled at is if you put up their individual websites, it is shocking how similar they all are. Right. So what are the two or three things that you see within the home improvement space that people do and you go, you're not helping yourself, bud?
mm. I think that's how long is a piece of string? There's a
Yeah.
lot I could talk about. Um, I think from looking at several home improvement companies through our work together on some of these one leg projects, I think it all comes back down to what I was talking about before about struggling to tell that story. Um, a lot of home improvement websites kind of kick things off by saying this is a special deal. This is a summer deal. This is a 2021 special. Um, this is who we are. Like, this is why we're different to other contractors. Um, but what they don't really talk about is what the user is going through by looking at a home improvement company, because improving your home
Sure.
is a pretty big decision, right?
Yep.
It's a pretty, dare I say, life changing undertaking, and so there's actually a feeling of nervousness and excitement at the same time, um, and I think what these companies should do is pivot instead from our as people, this is what makes us different as contractors. This is how cheap our services are. um, this is their experience, and instead talk about how they can help the user with their undertaking. So this is what your dream home could be like. This is stuff we've done in the past. Look at these visual examples of how we've helped other people like you successfully improve their homes. um, we don't want to just give you the marketing spiel off the back of the box. We want to listen to you and understand what it is you're trying to do with your home, because every home is unique. And so we need to understand, well, why are you improving your home to begin with? What thoughts and feelings are you having, and how can we help you on that journey? And I think a good place to actually look at for inspiration for a lot of these is, funnily enough, like a lot of banking websites.
Hmm.
Um, you go onto a home loan website, for example, and they don't kick things off by saying, "Hey, look at how low our rates are, or how much money you could save, and look how trusted our branch is. You can trust us." They usually kick stuff off with a big hero image or a big video of like a newlywed couple moving into their
Yeah.
home for the first time.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And it sparks that emotional feeling of, oh my god, look how nervous, excited they are. Imagine that feeling of walking in for the first time and the improvements done, and your home looks completely different to before, and it feels like everything has fallen into place. um, that feeling alone, just from seeing that picture, has immediately reinforced your perception of the brand. um, and I think that's the second thing to talk about, is that brand perception. um, if you're a customer looking to do a home improvement project, they're usually a pretty hefty sum uh, of money.
Yep. Yeah.
um, and so you don't want to go for a company that you don't necessarily trust. And when it comes to brand, A lot of people these days think brand is just, well, what's the logo look like and
Right.
what do the colors look like? But brand is so much more than that. Brand is, how do you feel about this business? How do you describe this business to other people when they ask you about it? What do you think of the business when an email appears in your inbox or you see them on social media? Um, it's a story that continues to grow and continues to evolve across different platforms. And so, for example, if you heard about a home improvement company and a friend told you in real life, they said, "Hey, check these guys out. I did them." Um, you'd be like, "Okay, cool. I've got someone that's told me that. Maybe they're a bit more reliable. I've got some history." And then you open up their website, and their website looks like a sales catalog shouting in your face and saying, "Buy,
Hmm.
buy, buy! Like, come to our cheap services." Um, your brand perception just goes straight down.
Yep.
Uh, and if you don't feel like your time is being respected as a consumer, um, there's another competitor out there somewhere that does respect that time.
Well,
Um,
and in the home improvement space, there's probably about a dozen competitors
yeah,
out there who,
absolutely.
yeah, that's right.
And that's the thing about home improvement is a lot of it is it's very personal stuff because a lot of family businesses involved in this as well.
Right.
Um, and so it's a bit of a waste when you go into a home improvement site that's family run or family operated. Um, and instead of telling that story about how personal and intimate this company is, they just go straight on to, okay, well, this is a summer plan, and this is how cheap we can do your remodeling for. Um, I think the biggest thing is understanding what people are trying to do when it comes to home improvement, respecting that and understanding that, and respecting their time and their effort to try and give you their their consideration for your purchase. Um, and in return, you should respect that by giving them the content they want to see, letting them find out as soon as possible what makes your business different and how you can help them. Um, and I wanted to touch base on this kind of final point about what
Yep.
you were talking on. When it comes to media and photography, you don't need a dedicated photography team like Apple or Microsoft. Not everyone has a team of 50 photographers that they can just call up on hand and say, "Hey, can you get a photo shoot for this?" Um, for a lot of these small businesses or these startups, it's quite hard because there isn't this photography on hand to them. Um, and so, what a lot of them resort to is stock imagery or illustrations. And stock imagery, I think, is fine if it's used correctly and in moderation. But there's nothing worse than opening up a website and it looking like something from early 2000s because it's got
Clip
like
art.
clip art, exactly. You've got clip art illustrations, you've got like a generic stock photo of like a man in a suit with like a thumbs up and there's like a graph behind him. Um,
That's
I think a lot of imagery for home improvement uh, could kind of be improved by having a lot more shots of the actual home, because that's the important thing here, right? Is the improvement of the home. And so I open up a lot of these home improvement websites, and the first thing I see is like a contractor or a builder. Um, and I go, okay, that's great, but as a customer, I care about my home. That's what I'm improving here.
yep.
This isn't the builder improver project I'm undertaking. Um, that's your business. It's almost a bit selfish to describe it like this, but as a customer, I am purchasing you to upgrade my home, so I don't really care about seeing people in work hats on the homepage. I want to see examples of the previous homes that you've improved or upgraded, so I can say, "Wow, look at that before and after. Man, I wish my house looked like that. Maybe they could do something like that for my home." Um, so a lot of the stuff that we kind of do at One Leg is helping businesses refine this visual display, uh, not just making UI changes, but making UX changes. And that's
Sure.
where, as our creative team, we look at these imagery and these media, as well as the copy and the journey, and we say, do these all feel in tandem? Do they all work together? Maybe the copy on the website is superb, but then you scroll down and you've got that stock photo of the man with the thumbs up. Um, And so I think we do a really good job of understanding what the appeal is of this business and finding imagery that really suits that. Exactly as you said, that people look at and they say, "Wow, I wish I was in that situation. Look how picturesque that
Yep.
is." Um, because when people open up a website or navigate a website, the eyes are always drawn to pictures or to videos first.
Right.
Um, Usually, as a baseline for UI, it goes media, titles, body content. Um, and so, if all of your like main selling points is in the body content, it's not going to really
You're
land.
not
I
helping
suppose
yourself.
exactly because
Yeah.
people are very visual creatures. They open up a website, and if it looks pretty and there's a really uh, kick-ass looking hero banner, people are going to notice that straight away, and then boom, you've got brand perception improving, and that's before people have even read your copy.
Yeah.
Whereas if people open the website and it just looks boring, then they're going to take that feeling into reading your copy, and you're already at a disadvantage. Um, yeah, I mean, look, I could talk about this stuff all day. I think there's so much you could improve on, but a lot of it does depend on each business and what each business is trying to do and trying to sell, because every business is subtly unique. Um, whether it's a family business like I was talking about before, or whether it's a big enterprise, um, every business has a unique selling point and a unique story to tell. And I think it's
Yep.
just about how they can tell that story the most effectively to their customers.
Well, and to your point, we could go on and on. These podcasts are meant to be short little snippets, glimpses into the world and some of the challenges that we're helping clients work through at any given time. And we can certainly come back and talk. The photography one is a really interesting one, right? Because to your point, and we will do. I'll make a note here, and we will do a whole other show, and we'll bring Barry on. We'll bring you on,
Mm.
and we'll do it specifically on photography. But just simple things. You you are going to have to use some level of stock imagery, or you're going to go out and take a picture and it's going to be horrible. But I think the just really quickly, the thing that people usually don't think about, but us in the creative world do, is just because you have an image that you've taken a picture of, okay, you can zoom in on that image. You could apply a filter to it. You can blur it out a little bit. You can do any number of things to make that more interesting, more eye appealing. And there are little tricks and trades. No, it's a really good point, Josh, and we'll do a very specific show on stock imagery, because that's the default for people. And the other really quick tip that people find out really quickly is don't get caught just downloading random images from Google. Usually those are owned by somebody. So great. This has been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate you coming on, Josh. I'll make a little note here, as long as I don't screw up the next 35-40 seconds. We can be happy with the fact that we've done this in one take all the way through. So root for me as we close it out here. As you know, if you want a better user interface and experience that accelerates conversions, give us a shout. Give me a shout at ed.davis@oneleg.co. That's ed.davis@oneleg.co. No M at the very end of that. And at One Leg, we are experts and practitioners of omotenashi, the highest level of customer care and experience. One Leg believes poor marketing pollutes the planet, and that business is full of tired, outdated, indistinct, unremarkable, and underperforming marketing that sucks. But what sucks even more is that many companies have forgotten the most important thing of all, the customer. We are on a mission on behalf of our clients' customers to change that. To learn more, go to oneleg.co. We hope you've enjoyed our chat today and learned a couple things. Find us, follow us, and rate us wherever you socialize online. Thanks again. We'll talk to you next time.